Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Season 14, Episode 3. I know I am super late, but I am back, and these last few days have been such a whirlwind. Very exciting, very emotional, but my little sister graduated from college this past Sunday, which was also the 1-year anniversary of her father's passing. So she graduated from UPenn. And we are just beyond proud of her, and she is just such a lovely sister, and I'm just so blessed. We had such a fabulous time. I always love going to Philly, okay? I always make sure to have my cheesesteaks. Ishkabibbles is my favorite, okay? Shout out to them on South Street. But a phenomenal time, a beautiful graduation. But now we are back, okay? And I have a lot to say. This was a great episode. That ending, Drew, while I feel sorry for you and what you're going through with Ralph, you're a weirdo. And those last 8 minutes solidified it. And while I'm not Sheree's biggest fan by any means, Sheree is not the one or the two. So all that putting your hands in her face, I said, sis, you're not that girl. I would suggest that you sit this out and just keep it real cute. But with all that being said, let's just jump right on into this recap because we don't have a minute to spare. We start off the episode with Kenya meeting up with her party planner, and they're discussing the details for Brooklyn's 3rd birthday party. Kenya wants to do a cute tea party since Brooklyn loves tea, and the venue looks gorgeous. I think it was an art gallery, but Kenya wants to go over the top. She wants open bar. She wants there to be food. She wants the tables to be all set up. She wants the decor, balloons, you name it. And she is not sparing any expense because we find out that the party is going to cost her around $10,000 to $15,000. I just really felt bad for Kenya when she mentioned, like, I don't know if Mark is going to help out with the party, but whether he does or doesn't, I'd like to keep the cost to $10,000 and not $15,000. Like, I still have to put her through college. And, you know, it's just really sad because I was looking at the recent blog reports about how Mark wants to claim half of her house. And it's like, she bought that house before you were ever in the picture. I'm just upset that Kenya ever got with Mark in the first place. You could look at him and tell that he had ulterior motives being with her in the first place. And this is why I will always believe that rich women need to be with their equal financially or a man who has more, not somebody who has less. And I know that people might disagree, but in my personal opinion, I don't think it works when the woman has more money than the man. It always goes left. Mary J. Blige, Wendy Williams, Jill Scott, Kelly Clarkson. She has to pay that fool, I think, what, $200,000 a month? Bethany Frankel, look what happened to her. Just my opinion, but it doesn't seem to work when it's role reversal. And if you watched this last season of OC, then you remember Dr. Jen and her leech of a husband. Now we jump over to the next scene with Sheree and Marlo working out. They take a quick break and they just start talking about what's going on. So Marlo brings up how they were all shading her little archive event. And Sheree says, we weren't hating on you. We were just giving you some constructive criticism. Then Sheree goes on to say that Marlo's business is a very niche business. Now listen, whether it was constructive criticism or hating or a mix of both, nobody wants to hear any critiques about their event while it's going on. But at the end of the day, she did pour her heart and soul into it. She spent $40,000 on the event, so all she wanted was a pat on the back. If you've been a long-time Housewives watcher, then you've seen quite a few messed up parties across all the franchises, okay? No food, no liquor, no ambiance, no nothing. So Marlo's event in the grand scheme of things wasn't that bad. There are people who would give an arm and a leg to throw a bad party like that. So Marlo says that Archive is not for everybody and how she really wants her business to be more involved in the industry. Like she would love to do wardrobe for Tyler Perry. And now we learn that Sheree's oldest son, Cairo, is working for Tyler Perry's wardrobe department. So Marlo says, well, speaking of Cairo, I need your advice on how to parent boys because I don't know if I'm parenting my nephews right. Like, I need some help. And remember how in the last episode, Marlo expressed these same sentiments to Kandi. In my opinion, Sheree didn't offer any advice. She gave a very generic compliment. She was like, girl, everybody parents differently. All I can say is you're doing a great job. I was like, well, Sheree, she asked you for some advice. You couldn't have thrown her a bone. Like, give her something more than that. So since they're on the topic of Marlo's nephews, Sheree's asking Marlo if her youngest nephew, Michael, is taking acting lessons. Marlo says that he is, and she's also taking lessons too. So she says that she's an actress and Kenya and Drew better watch out because she's about to have some IMDb credits herself. So of course, since Drew's name has just been brought up, the next topic is this whole assistant debacle. And Marlo says, well, speaking of Drew, Kandi told me the other day that you and Drew used to share the same assistant and how he quit because you weren't paying him. So now Sheree tries to clear her name talking about he was never her assistant. He didn't do anything for her. I said, okay, that's all well and good, but I find that hard to believe. Once again, Sheree has a clear track record of not paying people. We all remember how it took forever and a day for Chateau Sheree to be built because she was stiffing the contractors and they had walked out on her. And I also remember in season 2 when her and Kim Zolciak got into it because Kim said, girl, you're sitting up in Neiman Marcus writing bad checks. Knowing what we know about Sheree when it comes time to paying people is just not looking good for her. I believe that Anthony did do some things for her, and she said, shout out to everybody, I have fun when it came time to paying him.
Oh! Shout out to everybody, I have fun.
I gotta be good.
And a lot of these housewives are actually very cheap when it comes to paying folks. They want freebies, they want deals, they stiff people, and it's like for y'all to have so much money, why are you so cheap? Why do you want a discount? Why do you want a deal? But you know what? Let me not go off on a tangent. So Sheree is visibly annoyed about hearing this rumor yet again, and she says, I don't understand why Kandi wouldn't call me up about this first. Like, me and her actually have a relationship. So now Marlo's egging her on. She's like, yeah, you know, I'm surprised that Kandi wouldn't talk to you about this either. So now Sheree starts getting real nasty and shady in her confessional. And she says, the way that Kandi can't stand when people talk about her and when her business is in the streets, but now she wants to spread lies about other people, like, bitch, bye. Now, while I can understand Sheree feeling a type of way at Kandi telling everybody else except her, because I'd be annoyed about that too. If you're my friend and you hear something being said about me, I would hope that you would call me up and not go to everybody else and then tell me later. Like, come to me first. But at the same token, Sheree, you have prided yourself on being the instigator and the bone collector for years. So you do the same thing to other people, but you don't like when it's being done to you. It wasn't right when you ran back to Marlo at her archive event and told Marlo what everybody was saying about her. That wasn't fair. So the same way that you want that same courtesy, then you have to extend it to other people. And when Sheree said that Anthony has told her a bunch of stuff about Drew and Ralph, I was like, so when were you and Anthony hanging out for him to tell you anything? I thought you said that he wasn't your assistant, never worked for you. I don't see you and Anthony hanging out. I don't see you guys being, close friends. So what capacity were you hearing all this stuff from him? This next scene with Kandi and Todd just confirmed what I've always felt about their marriage. I just don't see the chemistry or the love between them. But anyhow, they're both at home. Kandi is talking to her agent and they're discussing the ticket sales for the play. So while they're discussing the play, Kandi says that her ultimate goal is to have an Emmy, Grammy, Tony, and Oscar. And she says she already has the Grammy, but not the other three. And I was just like, once again, Kandi, you're always talking about how you're stressed out, you're stretched too thin, you feel bad about being away from your kids, but then you say that you want an Emmy, an Oscar, and a Tony, and it's like, you are aware that if you want to be an actress now, being on set is going to take you away from your family. You already have 11 other projects and businesses going on. Don't you want to focus on what you have going on right now? Like, I'm just confused because Kandi talks out two sides of her face. Because you want to do all these things and there's no shame in that. That's a great thing to have all these dreams. But you might have to put that on pause if you want to see your kids grow up. So now we learned that Kandi is also going to be signing on to do another movie, I think. And in this movie, she's playing a woman who likes other women. So Todd has now walked into the room and the agent is asking Todd how he feels about Kandi doing sex scenes with another woman. So Todd's like, I'm fine with it as long as it's not another man. So now here's where this conversation takes a hard left. And at this point, I had forgotten that their agent was still on the call because they were going through it like they were in a therapy session. Todd's going on about how it's hard for him and the kids when Kandi's not home, how she's stretched too thin, but he tries not to say anything. And I was like, well, Todd, how upset are you? Because you're always away. Kandi was saying how you're always taking solo trips. Todd starts venting about how when they first got together, they did a lot together, like pretty much everything. But now he's feeling left out. And like I said earlier, this is another reason why I feel like rich women need to marry their equal or a man with more, preferably more. But right then and there, when Todd said that, I said, see, Todd is tired of playing number two to Kandi. And it was very telling when Kandi said, I think that Todd's become resentful of me. And I said, you think? And when Todd was saying how he feels left out and how he doesn't get credit for different projects, I just said, I just don't see it lasting. Between the issues with Mama Joyce, Kandi's schedule, Todd feeling resentful and left out, it's just a recipe for disaster. And I was just thinking, is this all they talk about? Like every time they have a conversation, it's never about their marriage and just them. It's always about some new business venture, how to make another dollar, the restaurants, this, that, and the third. It's never about anything fun. Like, what kind of marriage is that? Where all y'all talk about is business and the latest venture. So now we jump to the next scene with two thirsty individuals, Drew and Anthony, and they're at a toy shop to go get a gift for baby Brooklyn. And Drew is like, oh my gosh, like when Kenya sent me the invite for Brooklyn's party, I was so shocked, but I can't wait to attend. And she's going on and on about how she's just excited that her and Kenya have cleared the air and they're cool again. I'm like, Drew, enough. May I just say that Drew has a very desperate energy. Like, it just seeps out of her pores. And this scene just felt like she was just doing so much for the cameras. So anyhow, Drew brings up Sheree, and she's like, when I met Sheree, she said to me and Ralph that she had heard so much about us. And when I had asked her, well, what have you heard? And she started laughing. Anthony interjects and says, well, let me just tell you that me and Sheree used to be very good girlfriends, but I had to cut ties with her because she don't want to pay. And then he adds on that he had hooked her up with one of his vendor friends and she didn't want to pay him either because she still owes him, I think, $25,000. Now, let me just say this. If this story is true about Sheree being on the hook for $25,000, then Anthony's friend needs to sue. I'll be damned if somebody cheats me at a 25 grand. I'm getting my money. I'll be right there in one of those court shows, okay? Now, while Anthony was going on about how he needs to be paid for his work, which I wholeheartedly agree with, I was kind of rolling my eyes because it's evident that Anthony is very thirsty like his boss, and he's trying to get some screen time as well. Like every single scene that he's been on, it's like, just calm down. Like, relax. All these theatrics and you're trying to be funny, you're trying to be witty. It's like, just let it flow naturally. And if we're being honest, why does Drew even have an assistant? Her career has been stalled for a long time. I only remember her from The Game and the TLC movie. So now Drew goes to pay for the gift that she just bought for Brooklyn. And when she was bragging about how she spent $200 on the gift, it was like, as you should. Because that stunt that you pulled last season at that Secret Santa event, you need to make up for it by buying Kenya's daughter a nice gift. Because that $34 wig and that cheap pet carrier was unacceptable. So while Drew and Anthony are leaving the toy store, Drew gets a frantic call from Sonya, and baby Sonya is shaken up over that phone. She's crying because her car collided into an 18-wheeler. So she's crying and she asks Drew to drive over to where she's at and pick her up so that she can pick her son up from school. I felt bad for Sonya. I could only imagine how she feels. I know that when I'm on the highway, I cannot stand driving next to a truck. Like, I will speed past a truck so fast. I get so much anxiety. Like, I think of the worst possible thing happening to me, like the truck toppling over. And when I tell you, I have a very vivid imagination, but I cannot stand driving near trucks. Like, I just get so nervous each and every time. So I can only imagine how Sonya felt, and the fact that the truck collided into her. I said, thank God she wasn't killed. Like, the impact of an 18-wheeler, like, I don't even want to think such a thing. But I was glad that she was okay, and I was happy when Drew picked her up. Oh, and another quick side note. It's just so weird to me that we're going to see the dissolution of Drew and Sonya's friendship, because if you've been reading the blogs, they're no longer friends. But I'll bet money that Drew is probably the reason for why they fell out in the first place. So it's the day of Brooklyn's 3rd birthday party, and I have to say that they did a gorgeous job with the venue. I mean, it looked absolutely stunning. Kenya did that. That was money well spent. I said, that is how you throw a party. And I also have to say that motherhood really suits Kenya. You can just tell that Brooklyn is just like the love of her life, and her face just lights up every time she talks about her daughter. And I always think it's so cute when she calls her daughter Brookie, because that's my nickname. That's what I've been called my whole life. So every time she calls Brooklyn Brookie, I'm like, oh, we have the same nickname. We see Miss Sheree arrive, and we know that Sheree is kind of stingy with her compliments. So the fact that she was blown away really says something. She was like, oh my gosh, like, who planned this? Like, this is gorgeous. And I was cracking up when Sheree said, you know, Kenya, this is so beautiful. Like, I want to have another baby. So now Sheree says to Kenya that she's unhappy about all this mess that she's hearing about Drew and this whole assistant mess, and how she wants to address it. Kenya says, look, girl, this is my daughter's party. I don't want any drama. Just leave it alone until you see her the next time. Sonya arrives with her son, and I couldn't stop laughing because he was acting up the entire party. Sonya was fed up because she was threatening to call the dad. She was like, look, don't make me call daddy. We also see Miss Monyetta arrive with her daughter. And we all know Monyetta, she is the ex-fiance of Neo. And baby, the way they broke up, and Neo did her so dirty. But we learned that Kenya met Monyetta through Kandi, and she's actually going to be the new friend of the show. I'm excited to see what she's going to bring. She's a very interesting life. an interesting backstory, and she has a very long coin herself. So welcome to the fold, Monyetta. I'm excited to see what she has to bring to this franchise, and maybe she'll be bumped up to a full-time castmate next season. But anyhow, Drew arrives with her daughter, and baby, I said the weirdness of it all, because Drew showed up in the same exact dress that Kenya wore 2 years ago. I was like, girl, what? Even Kenya was freaked out. Like, is this girl stalking me? Like, the same exact dress? Like, who does that? I get the impression that Drew is, like, obsessed with Kenya, and she really craves her validation. Because some stuff is just very strange. And the way she acts when it comes to Kenya, the constant, I'm just so happy that we're cool again, and just fawning over her. It's like, girl, just be normal. Like, stop. You're a grown woman. Why are you acting so weird? Now, Drew and Sonya go off to the side, and Drew brings up her marriage and how they're having some more issues. So now we see a clip of Ralph and Drew talking, and Ralph is pretty much telling Drew that she pretty much spit in his face. He was trying to be nice to her, have a nice night out for the both of them, and she didn't appreciate it. Then we see Drew saying, so you're okay not sleeping in the bedroom, you're sleeping in Makai's room. I'm like, why don't y'all just stop with this and just get a divorce? It's clear that Ralph is unhappy. He doesn't want to be a faithful, monogamous husband to you. You seem miserable. You're always walking on eggshells. Just get a divorce. This man is a full-blown narcissist. For him to say that you spit in his face, all you did was just bring up how you feel in the marriage. And for all of y'all who keep saying that Drew and Ralph are both acting and playing with their marriage for a storyline, while Drew is desperate, I don't think that they're playing around. I think that this is very much real. Because Drew, like you guys have pointed out, is not that great of an actress. So now Sonya says, girl, I'm sorry to hear that, but at least you look good. And then Drew says, yeah, you're right. I mean, we both pull it together for the kids. I'm like, kids can sense that. Your kids are not as oblivious as you think they are. I'm sure they can hear you guys arguing. I'm sure they notice when their dad is out for days at a time. I'm sure they notice when you're crying and unhappy about how their dad treats you. Like, don't be fooled. And what a sad thing to say anyway. We're pulling it together for the kids. Like, what? Like I said in last week's recap, I would have flipped that table over, threw that glass of wine in Ralph's face, and went back home. Me and those kids would have been at the nearest Four Seasons. And Ralph would have been slapped with divorce papers the very next day. So we see Marlo arrive, and now Kandi arrives last because Kandi is always late. And I was screaming when Kenya was like, girl, I don't want to hear the excuses. Like, you're late. Just come on in and enjoy the party. And you guys know me. Lateness is a big pet peeve. I can see if you're 5-10 minutes late. Okay, cool. But when you're a whole hour, hour and a half late, 2 hours late, that is unacceptable. Kandi is one of those people where you have to tell her that the event starts 2 hours before it actually does. If the dinner starts at 9, tell her it starts at 7 so that she'll get there at 9:15. So the party's going on. Everybody's having a good time. All of Brooklyn's friends are there. All the other mothers of the kids are there as well. And now it's time for the games to be played. The first game is Brooklyn Trivia. So Kenya's asking them, what's Brooklyn's middle name? What was Brooklyn's first word? All stuff like that. So I think it's a tie. I think Marlo and Kandi won that game. And now the second game is where things get shady. Now, Team Twirl, you guys know that I'm on your side, but I have to call a spade a spade. Please don't get mad at me. But Kenya, this was not the time or the place for this game to be played. And you spent too much money on this beautiful party for anything to even go left. So anyhow, the name of this game, I think it was called Shady Tea, and they all have to write something shady about each other on an index card. So now Monyetta picks a card, and I think it was asking about, have you gotten work done? And she says that she got her tits done, but she's all natural. So now Kandi picks an index card, and her card reads, Kandi sucks dick in locker rooms. So everybody's like, oh my gosh, like who wrote that? Kandi is visibly pissed. She's like, who wrote that? Like, that's not true. I have never done any such thing. Nobody wants to admit who wrote that on the index card. Now, my personal opinion, I could see either Sheree or Marlo writing that. Marlo and Kandi have always had a very interesting relationship. Sheree gets nasty when she feels slighted. And we all know that Sheree is feeling slighted by Kandi about Kandi going around spreading this rumor about the assistant and Sheree not paying him. And I definitely understood why Kandi was upset, because it's like, why would you try to play me like that? Especially because Kandi is very open about her sexuality. So if she did do anything of the sort, she would have just admitted. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely did believe her when she said, you know, I never done that. Like, why would you even say that? And it was really mean of Sheree when she was like, I mean, I don't understand why she's so offended because she sucks dick everywhere else. And it's like, Sheree, shut up. Because you'd be the first one wanting to fight somebody if they made fun of you being with a jailbird at your big age. So now it's Kenya's turn to pick a card, and her card was shading Marlo's business archive. So Marlo's a bit upset, and she's like, well, you know, we're not for everybody. So now Kenya says, well, that's fine, but I do have to talk to you about something because I heard that you're saying that I'm borrowing somebody else's car. So she's like, look, I have never borrowed Lisa Ray's car. I don't even know her like that. So Marlo's like, yep, I did say that because I heard that you were driving around in her car. So Kenya says, girl, no, I wasn't, but I did hear that you bought a used Rolls Royce. Now, we all know how Marlo is. Do not ever say that she's wearing anything fake or used because it's about to be a problem. So now they start going back and forth. She's like, girl, my Rolls Royce was brand new off the lot. And then she starts reading Kenya about how Kenya was wearing a Chanel-inspired outfit. And I said, that is Marlo's tried and true read, calling somebody else's stuff fake when it's not. Like, she loves doing that. Marlo's one of those people where if you get into it with her, have your receipts on hand because she'll try you. And I'd be like, girl, don't even play me. Here's a receipt. I spent $7,000.63, okay? I was at Neiman Marcus, okay? I was at the store. Like, this is real. Don't do me.
Bling, bling, bling. Bitches is mad.
And now the next card is read, and it's about somebody not paying their assistant. We already know that this is about Sheree allegedly not paying Anthony. So here comes Drew trying to have a conversation with Sheree. She's like, well, I've heard some things about you not paying. So Sheree is already on the defense. She's like, girl, what have you heard? Like, you have my number. You could have called me. And I agree with that 100% because Drew didn't have to be messy telling everybody but Sheree. If she had Sheree's information, she could have called her up at any time and said, hey, girl, Anthony told me XYZ. Is that true? So now the conversation is getting heated. Drew says that she didn't know this information for sure. So now Sheree cuts in and says, so if you didn't know for sure, then why are you spreading this? Because you went around telling Kandi, and then Kandi told Kenya, and then Kandi told Marlo. So the way Sheree is talking about Kandi bringing this up, Kandi already consents that Sheree is mad at her too. So Kandi says, I was trying to give Drew the chance to tell the tea herself, but now I'm in trouble. And that's why it pays to keep your mouth shut and not get in the middle of things. Because now Sheree is mad at you too. But had you not spread this around, you know, it wouldn't be a mess for you. So Sheree says, look, he was never my assistant. Why would I pay somebody who never worked for me? Like, that's stupid. Then she goes on to say, don't play with me, my kids, or my finances. Now, I'm like, Sheree, you used to be the queen of talking about somebody not having money. The way you were always coming after Nene in the earlier seasons when Nene was broke, don't do it. You were always talking about Nene, how Nene had rotten teeth, how her Range Rover got repossessed in the Home Depot parking lot. So stop it. So the conversation is going left. Sheree says, Drew, are you that desperate where you let your assistants talk about your friends? So now Drew says, girl, I have 3 assistants. So I'm like, why do you have 3 assistants? For what? I don't even know why you have 1 assistant. What do you do? And I'll bet money that Drew isn't paying those 3 assistants well at all. She's probably paying them the same salary that Jen Shah was paying her 9 assistants. Nothing. If they're lucky, she's probably paying for their lunch and that's it. 3 assistants, but you were making a big deal about spending $1,000 on a Secret Santa gift last season? Like, miss me with it. So while this conversation is going left, everybody at the table is trying to rein it back in because you have the little kids over at the next table. Sheree's friend jumps in and says to Drew, isn't this guy the same guy who's running around saying that your husband is gay? So now Sheree is looking like, oh my gosh, like, why'd you say that? So now Drew starts screaming at the top of her lungs saying, don't speak about my husband. Like, don't ever talk about my husband. So child, while Drew is screaming, one of the other mothers gets up and she is pissed. She's like, this is ridiculous. You have kids here. And Marlo's like, Kenya, don't bring your white friends around anymore. They don't get it. And it's like, it doesn't matter if it's a white woman, a black woman, a green woman, purple woman. Like, there are some conversations that should not be had while there are kids present. This was not the time or the place for them to be having this conversation and playing this stupid game in the first place. Period, point blank. Nobody takes their kids to a kid's birthday party for them to hear a whole bunch of cursing, yelling, and adult topics laced with profanity going on. She had every right to be annoyed. Like, Marlo, grow up. Just because you're down for drama and yelling 24/7 doesn't mean that everybody else is. So now Sheree calls Drew a dizzy bitch. So now Kenya gets up and says, look, it's a kid's party. Let's end this right now. So now Kandi says, I mean, at the end of the day, we should have never played this game in the first place because it's a kid's party. And she's absolutely correct. You already know that there's some drama lingering in the group. You know these women. You know that anytime there's a chance to be shady and nasty, they're going to do it. And you get to hide behind writing on some index cards. You already know this game was going to go left. So now Kenya tells Drew that she owes Sheree's friend an apology because she was just relaying what she had heard. So Kandi co-signs and says, yeah, Drew, if I were you, I'd be more upset at Anthony spreading rumors about my husband. So now Drew says that Anthony's on probation and everybody's like, girl, what are you talking about? Marlo's like, what? Kandi's like, wait, so you're telling us that you already knew what Anthony was saying about your husband? So now Drew backpedals and she says, wait, what? Like, I didn't know what he was saying about my husband. So Drew is still playing dumb, making no sense. I mean, I was confused. I was like, wait, what? What is he on probation for? Like, you just loved Anthony to pieces. Now he's on probation? Like, what are you saying? So now Sheree calls Drew a dizzy bitch again and says that she needs to be mad at Anthony. So now Kenya's like, let's table this conversation for now. It's time to sing happy birthday to my daughter. So everybody gets up. They sing happy birthday to Brooklyn. We see everybody at the bar drinking, having a good time. And now the party comes to a close. And as all the ladies are saying goodbye to Kenya, more drama starts back up yet again. So Marlo says to the ladies, look, me and Kenya get into it, but we have love for each other at the end of the day, and we're good. So she says, the same way that you guys key-keyed at my event, why don't you guys just key and have a laugh about, hey, this guy said that you didn't pay him. Like, just laugh about it and let's move on. So now Drew interrupts and says that it would have been nice if Sheree had given her the heads up about how Anthony was going around talking about her husband, Ralph. So Sheree's like, girl, shut up. Like, I don't even want to address you. Like, you're just a loser. Like, be quiet. So now Marlo defends Sheree, and she says, well, one thing about it, Sheree didn't say anything about the rumors about your husband. So now Kandi interjects and says, well, all I know is if somebody says something about me, I'm still going to be mad about it. And we know that Miss Kandi can hold a grudge until the end of time. And that is one thing that me and Kandi do have in common. So now Drew interrupts and says how it's different because somebody talking about you didn't pay them, that's minor. But somebody talking about your husband's sexuality, that's a big deal. So now Kandi says, well, I do understand that. And before she can say anything more, Sheree says to Kandi, Kandi, me and you have to have a talk because I don't appreciate you running your mouth. So of course Candy's annoyed that Sheree's mad at her. And she's like, girl, why are you mad at me? So Sheree says, me and you are friends. Okay, we know each other. I don't know her. So now Drew wants to get all big and bold. And she's like, don't call me a her. My name is Drew. Like, refer to me as Drew. So baby, they start going at it. Here goes all this hand motion in each other's faces. Sonya and Kenya had to get in the middle and break it up before it really goes into fight night. And they both pull Drew to the side and they're like, look, Sheree is the wrong one, okay? Like, your hands in her face will result in you getting a beat down. Sheree is not the one or the two. Like, Sheree has a good 5-6 inches over you. She's strong. She can fight. Like, that's the wrong person to mess with. And I've never taken Drew as anybody's fighter. So I said, Drew, just stop. Honestly, I feel like a lot of these new girls like to come on here and purposely pick a fight with the veterans of the show because they want some clout. And I think that's one of the main reasons why Drew is now trying to have a problem with Sheree. But y'all, that's where the episode ends. Thank you all for watching my recap. I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all later. Bye.